And good morning, everybody, on this momentous February 28th, 2026. Pleased to be joined by my friends Malcolm Nance, Black Man Spy, and of course, Ken Harbaugh of the Ken Harbaugh Show, both veterans of the United States Navy, Senior Chief Malcolm Nance, and Ken Harbaugh, a naval aviator. We talked not too many days ago about this moment. We didn't know when. All of us were sure that it was going to happen. I thought it was going to happen earlier in the week. I think you guys did too, but alas, here we are by week's end. The United States is at war. And just to get started and to set a base, maybe someday people will look back at this and they can use it as an evidence of what was happening in the country. That unless I missed it, there was no debate about America going to war. There were no hearings. There were no speeches on the floors of either the House or the Senate. And there was no public outcry about any of it. And so, with a whimper of dissent and a mountain of indifference, America is attacking Iran. And for the third time in the 21st century, a new war has begun in the Middle East. Ken Harbaugh, how are you feeling this morning?
Well, the fact that we had to endure the longest State of the Union speech in history, where the president had the opportunity to explain to the American people the most momentous decision a president can make, the commitment of American lives to an endeavor like this, and chose to avoid the subject almost entirely, is a damning indictment of where this man puts his priorities. Let's not forget that none of his family members have ever had skin in the game. One of the only families in the history of the presidency to literally have zero connection to the military. We know about his disdain for the military itself, the suckers and losers comments, which is absolutely verifiable. And then you have him talking about from behind the presidential seal, the fact that lives might be lost as cavalierly as he did. I took that as a slap in the face, and hopefully another wake-up call to the American people that this president has absolutely all the wrong priorities. And look, I think you only need to consider the fact that the timing of this was built around stock market openings, not around tactical or strategic considerations. The number one timing issue was making sure it happened at a period in the news cycle, at a time when the markets wouldn't react too negatively. And as a result, lives are going to be lost. Of course, the hypocrisy, which I'm sure we'll get to, is riven throughout this decision. He accused Obama how many times of planning a war with Iran to save his presidency, and yet that is exactly what he is doing.
Malcolm Nance, in the early hours of this, is anything that you're seeing surprising you in the execution of the attack?
Well, yeah, I've been going at this since about
Malcolm, we don't have sound from you.
Oh, that's a surprise. Can you not hear me?
We'll let Malcolm troubleshoot that for a second. Ken, we were talking about the spike that's registerable in prediction market betting in the moments before the attack commences. And this is something that we've spoken about casually before, but what did you notice there? And comment, if you will, on the implications of that there might be open air betting like at the bazaar in the moments before U.S. military attack where there's clear foreknowledge that the attack is imminent. What are your observations about all of that?
It's that part of it that should be most alarming. There are always going to be people betting on horrible things happening. And the markets, I'm looking mostly at Poly Market and Kalshi, they have odds, have had odds for a long time on us going to war with Iran. But in the hours and minutes before the strikes, you saw a massive spike, like thousands of percent increases in the volume of betting that America was about to go to war. That's an indication of insider trading. And if this were happening on Wall Street, the investigations would start tomorrow. But the fact that it's happening with the lives of Americans and Iranians as the chips, as the pieces on this board, and I don't know if we'll ever get to the bottom of it, but I would bet my life that people inside the White House and close to Trump are making a fortune on committing Americans to war. When you look at the timing of these bets, the returns on these bets, in literally the hours and minutes before we're going to war, you have a massive spike in wagers on whether America is going to go to war. I would be shocked if these weren't coming from people who knew the American war machine was about to be propelled into action by Donald Trump.
Extraordinary corruption to fathom. Malcolm, are you with us?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Anything surprising to you about the early hours of the execution of the attack?
Yeah, like I said earlier, which you couldn't hear, I've been up since 3 a.m. watching this. As soon as the president made his pre-recorded speech, it was pretty clear that the fight was on. Now, the first thing that I want to call your attention to is the very fact that I've spelled this out. I just did a Substack for 2 hours. We are at war with Iran. This is the U.S.-Israel-Iranian war. But make no bones about it, it is the Donald Trump U.S. versus Iran war. He made that very clear. The primary reason he gave was regime change. He expects the United States somehow to use its air power to kill individuals in the regime enough that the Iranian people can rise up and take over the country. That is a pie in the sky that I've been hearing since my first deployment over there in 1985, 40 years ago. This belief that we can just bomb our way into getting people to side with us is a fantasy, and it cost maybe as many as 10 to 15,000 people their lives last month. Yes, things are difficult in Iran in some sectors, but it's a country of 93 million people. It is 4 times bigger than all of Iraq. It takes forever. I mean, you start at the bottom of the Arabian Gulf, Persian Gulf, and steam from, Bandar Abbas all the way up to Bandar Khamenei near the Iran-Iraq border. That takes a day and a half of nonstop moving. I mean, it is an enormous country. Missiles take a long time to fly across it. But the second reason Trump allegedly gave was that this was supposed to get rid of Iran's ballistic missile capability, reduce the nuclear weapons stockpiles that they claimed last year were obliterated. We all know here, I mean, I'm an intelligence professional, none of that was obliterated. We just blew up the facilities and they got the nuclear materials. And
he said again in his State of the Union, Malcolm, that the nuclear weapons program was obliterated, if I heard that correctly. Right. So we're just days on from him saying again that it was obliterated to we're attacking something that was obliterated.
So he also said that he was out to destroy the ballistic missile production capability, the Shahed missile production capability, drone capability, the ability of Iran to wage war, and that the U.S. Navy was going to do what have been waiting for since I fought them in 1988. We're going to savage the Iranian Navy. Great. Aspirational. Wonderful. But you cannot do this in a very short period of time. Initially, he said it was a multi-day war. Now he is referring to it as a campaign, which means that this is not going to go a week. I believe the technical term he used was several days. right? This is likely going to be several months. The Iranians are going to drag this out, and they played it out first thing this morning. Within an hour of the strikes, they had already pre-positioned and launched ballistic missiles into the following countries. They launched them into Israel, which included hits in the vicinity of Haifa, Tel Aviv, and Dimona in the south. They attacked a U.S. base in Jordan, and there's reports that ballistic missiles had multiple hits on that base. They attacked U.S. forces in Iraq. They attacked U.S. bases in Kuwait, including Ali al-Salam Air Base, and the U.S. Army Central Command Forward headquarters near Jufra. They attacked the U.S. Navy headquarters in Manama, Bahrain, with a Shahed drone and got direct hits on that base. There's a video showing the headquarters communication center blowing up with very close video, and now the oil storage facilities and repair facilities there are burning from stem to stern, as we say in the Navy. That base, I lived on that base for almost a year. That base was vital to us, but Fifth Fleet headquarters moved to a ship and is probably commanding from one of the amphibious ships in the Northern Indian Ocean. They then hit Doha, Qatar, U.S. bases in Doha. And in one video, the reason they were reporting explosions in Doha is the interceptors were blasting the boosters, and the boosters are now coming down in the city, exploding and releasing sulfuric gas as debris into the city. I've seen at least 2 videos of that. Then they hit Abu Dhabi, where I lived for 10 years, and they hit the Al Dhafra Air Base just south of the city of Abu Dhabi. But the Emiratis did not intercept most of those shots initially. The second wave, they are hitting and intercepting missiles coming in, and debris is falling all over the city. I've seen debris from Saadiyat Island, Yas Island, F1 Marina, all of these places around the city. The only Saudi Arabia, Riyadh, has been hit with several ballistic missiles. And the only country thus far that has not been hit with missiles is Syria, which is not in the fight, and Oman, which is the Switzerland of the Arabian Gulf area. So we are now in a regional war. But Steve, you asked a very specific question. What was the most surprising thing to me? Simply that this attack did not occur at 3:30 yesterday afternoon as I was waiting for it, which would have been 1:30 in the morning. It occurred at high noon, Saturday, which is market day in Tehran. 12 noon is when the first strikes started hitting in Iran. The purpose of this is what we would call a demonstration attack. One, we felt that we could attack that country during daylight on a weekend with impunity. Two, those mushroom clouds and clouds of the Ayatollah's house blowing up would give the Iranian people a visual that the United States was attacking in support of their, I don't know if you want to call it a revolution, but whatever their protests were last month. Donald Trump himself said it, that the United States is intending to send humanitarian aid to Iran. Surprising word. So I think he assumes that these airstrikes are humanitarian operation. But what we are getting into now is going to be an extended asymmetric war where Iran is going to show us they don't need ballistic missiles to make things burn.
Ken, do you know if we have control over the Iranian airspace at this hour?
At this hour, I don't know, but we will soon. And look, I think the nuance in Malcolm's analysis is everything, because we will dominate the Iranian military. Does not mean we're going to win this thing. I mean, look at our performance in Afghanistan. That military didn't last very long, and it didn't ultimately matter. We left the country with our tail between our legs. We are going to defeat the Iranian military conventionally. We are going to achieve air superiority and air dominance. But the Iranians are going to wage asymmetric warfare. The Iranians are not going to play by our rules, and they don't need the same kind of wins that we do. If they get their hands on one or two American service members, the game changes entirely. If we hit a school with 40 Iranian school kids in it, and there are going to be innocent Iranians killed by American bombs, the game changes entirely. This idea that you can force regime change through air power is, as Malcolm said, a complete fantasy. It has never worked. It has always required boots on the grounds. And if we had a Pentagon and a White House that had any appreciation of the history of regime change and how it actually happens, if they studied Syria, if they studied Algeria, if they studied Iraq and Afghanistan, they would know that bombs don't do it. It takes something much more subtle and much more intensive than a multi-day air campaign. This is not going to achieve the ends that Trump has laid out.
Yeah. And two of the things you just predicted just happened. One, we've just seen video that's about 45 minutes old of an Iranian Air Force MiG-29 doing a confidence pass over the Capitol, which means it was flying at low altitude, probably not avoiding missiles yet, but it was flying low altitude to show the Iranian people that the Iranian Air Force is in the air. This, by the way, is an Iraqi MiG-29 that they recolored.
That's right.
They evacuated in 1991. But they are flying. The Iranian Air Force is airborne. And you're right. We will shoot them down. We will have total aerial dominance. But that doesn't mean that we are not going to lose aircraft. We could have a flock of birds fly into it. We've already seen some asymmetric dominance already. We've seen a Predator drone, a Reaper drone, flying over Shiraz. Well, there's an F-4 Phantom base there near Shiraz. We could be striking Iranian aircraft with Hellfire missiles right now. That being said, that can all be wiped away with an event that's already happened. In southern Iran, there is video coming out right now that that a school was struck by accident. Today is Saturday. A lot of events occur in schools. I don't know if you've lived in the Middle East. I spent decades in the Middle East. A lot of school events happen on weekends. They do have a Girl Scouts in Iran. This school was supposedly hit, and there is video of bodies being brought out. Look, this is not like 1988, where people came out when we shot down an Iranian civil airliner, Iran Air 655, and killed 290 civilians. First thing that was said was the Iranians killed them and put the bodies on the airplane and let us shoot it down. We make mistakes because it's a war. And in war, a U.S. cruise missile that's intercepted or goes off course or just comes apart in the air could drop its payload and blow up a city block, and the majority of that block could be a girls' school. So, or bad targeteering, where our intelligence people just are told that building was a ballistic missile storage facility. In 1991, I captured a facility in Desert Storm that was a girls' technical school, and it was filled with 10 Silkworm anti-ship missiles. This could just be bad targeteering, but now they're saying 42 girls have been killed in this. If it's verified, and it's all over Al Jazeera right now, then a lot of these things will put America off, because you can guarantee Donald Trump will take a harsh, callous view towards Iranian people. He doesn't care about them. This is about safeguarding Israel from ballistic missiles, worthy goal. This is about safeguarding America's allies, who he has gotten a lot of money from Iran's ballistic missiles, worthy goal. This is about raising the price of oil over $100 a barrel. That's going to happen by tomorrow morning. And that, by the way, saves Russia. So this is about money and about changing this fantasy in his head from this Tom Clancy novel that he's been reading over and over again, or has been told by Benjamin Netanyahu, that he can overthrow the regime from air power. I mean, Jimmy Doolittle is pulling his hair out and rolling over in his grave at the same time.
Let me ask this question, Ken. When you talked about asymmetrical warfare, some questions coming in. What does that mean? How should people understand that phrase?
Asymmetrical warfare is the kind of warfare we're not good at. Asymmetrical warfare is what got us kicked out of Vietnam. It's what got us kicked out of Afghanistan. We are great at the technical stuff. We are great at controlling the skies and bringing combined arms to a fight in a place like Fallujah. But the minute they start sending kids with suicide vests into marketplaces, the American military is not great at dealing with that kind of thing. The minute Iran starts using ships or boats that look like civilian craft to approach American warships, we're going to have holes in the sides of American warships like we saw in Yemen with the USS Cole. Our military is great at that hypothetical confrontation with a near-peer adversary, taking on a Chinese fleet in the blue water of the Pacific, taking on the Russians, but taking on a tugboat in Aden, we're going to lose that fight. We're going to lose that fight, especially if you have the Iranian people committed to it. And that's the other big danger here, which no one seems to be talking about. If you want to do anything to solidify the regime in Iran, you give them an excuse to marshal the support of their people. And Malcolm, my heart is breaking at this report that you just shared. I'm going to do my own research on it, but even if this one doesn't turn out to be true, American bombs are going to kill innocent Iranians, and I know how I would react as an American if another country came into my community and killed my neighbors. I think there is a very strong likelihood here that this strengthens the Iranian regime instead of undermines it.
There's another factor of asymmetry that Iran has and has had for a very, very long time. It took 22 months, but my memoir was just cleared by the Pentagon and went through 5 different agencies and organizations to get cleared. So I can tell you this story now. In 1987, September 1987, Iran almost carried out a massive asymmetric warfare attack against the Gulf states. The United States was siding with Iran in the Iran-Iraq war, Operation Earnest Will, where we were escorting tankers that had been reflagged as the United States, was having an effect on the war and their war revenues. And at one point, they got so angry about it, they planned a commando, not a raid, an invasion of Kuwait, Saudi Arabia's offshore and coastal oil fields, from all the way from Ras Khalaya in Kuwait, all the way down to Dammam, Saudi Arabia, and Bahrain. And they had dedicated 3,000 Bashji commandos. This is Iranian Revolutionary Guard commandos, came out in small boats and were en route to carry out these attacks on the oil fields. It was only because we had about 3 days warning, a full color copy of the invasion plan, that the Saudi Navy, the Kuwaiti Navy, everybody mobilized. And we made it clear to the Iranians, we knew that you were doing this. We're going to sink every damn boat. The Saudis bought every ship from the Red Sea Fleet to the Persian Gulf over a day period to try to head this off. And the Iranians held off and claimed that it was an exercise. It wasn't an exercise. They were en route to do it. That could happen tonight. And let me tell you something, based on what I'm seeing out of Qatar, Bahrain, UAE, they're not prepared for 500 Iranian small craft to come across the Gulf, land at every goddamn oil field, and start having running gun battles with their cops and blow up the oil fields in Dammam. They're not, because it is beyond their ability to believe that it's possible. They could sink a lot of boats with air power. They could do all sorts of stuff. But if they wanted to put 5,000 troops across the Gulf tonight, they could do it, and this war could go. The price of oil would go to $150 a barrel, which is where Osama bin Laden always said it should be. This could spin out of control at any point. And that's the real asymmetric power Iran has. 93 million people, they have the ability to put, technically, they could mobilize over the next few weeks and invade Kuwait from the north through Iraq with the Iraqis helping them. Who knows?
When you evaluate what's happening in these early hours, and we'll start to wrap it up. I just a couple observations from my part, and then I'll let you two close it out. But never ever in American history, and I mean never ever, has there been a more unfit group of people who have initiated combat operations. Right. Never ever. Morally unfit, spiritually unfit, patriotically unfit, just as unfit intellectually as any group of people could ever be. Pete Hegseth is preposterous. Donald Trump is preposterous. The total lack of moral authority to start an endeavor like this is terrible. The Republic cannot be said to exist really at a functional level this morning. We've seen a war be initiated with no debate, no checks and balances whatsoever, an imperial decree, if you wish, that has locked the nation now into this. The Trump promise that he would not engage in any more foreign wars is now the most famous broken promise in American political history, yep. bar none. The strategy of this seems very clear to me at the early hours, which is Iran, which is the inferior force, the smaller foe against the United States, in the way that it is covered. But then again, the war isn't being fought in the United States. The war is being fought next to Iran. And because that is so, Iran is stronger there than our battle fleet is in its entirety, when you consider that wars are not won from the air alone. So what Iran has done in these early hours is try to expand the war to not being primarily a war where they are absorbing blows from the United States and from Israel, but instead where they are delivering blows and causing as much instability across a vast geographic footprint around the Middle East, which will put pressure on the Europeans and across the world economically for the fighting to cease. Trump is fighting alone without allies. Mm-hmm. Unbearable pressure will start to build, and he will have not achieved the objectives of regime change, which are not achievable absent an American commitment to boots on the ground. So as Malcolm predicted, as Ken predicted, this is going to go on for some time unless Donald Trump goes out and he says that the bombing is stopped, we've achieved something that, in fact, we have not achieved, that refutes what he said we were doing this for a few days ago. That will be packaged with a ribbon on it as some great victory by people like Tony DeCouple at CBS News and Barry Weiss, but it's not real. And I don't think we're going to get out of it as simply as that. We'll continue to talk about this unfolding event as the days and hours roll on. But over to you, Ken, just to wrap it up, any observations that you have in the early hours of another American war in the Middle East? We know that it's easy to start these wars and very, very difficult to end them. So here we go again. Any thoughts here at the beginning, for posterity's sake, if nothing else, just to put down how it is that we're here.
Yeah, well, Steve, I think it bears remembering that we couldn't even affect regime change in Venezuela in our own backyard. The Maduro regime is still in power there. Anything the White House proclaims after the first few days of this is going to likely be a lie. They lie like they breathe. And I think it gets to the fundamental question, which is the Trumpian psychology behind this. I think when you look at the motivating factors, it is probably less about defending Israel from ballistic missile attacks or raising the price of oil or whatever the stated strategic objectives are than the fact that Donald Trump has one thing left he can control. He can't control inflation. He can't control the release of the Epstein files. He can't control the increasing pushback from Democrats in Congress or the ire, the disdain of the American people that is rising like bile. What he can control is American military might. And I feel like that toddler instinct of his to lash out when he's under threat is what we're seeing now, and it's costing lives.
Yeah.
Malcolm?
Well, I'm sorry to have to bring this to your attention. And he mentioned it in his speech. American service members will die in this operation. They may not die being shot down. They may be shot down. They may have, what we call, Ken knows better than anybody, the golden BB, right? It is that one bullet, that stone that's fired into the air that you think cannot hit you, that through some change in physics or lift of the air hits you and brings you down, right? Knocks out your engine. Could be a flock of seagulls that goes through a B-2 bomber. Who knows what it is? Sailors will fall off of ships on air operations. I've worked on the flight deck from when I was a Sea Cadet. When I was 15, I worked on an aircraft carrier flight deck. You can be blown off a flight deck in high-intensity operations. You could be a Marine training, your tactical shooting, and fall over the side. A aircraft could go off the end of a catapult, cold cat, and crash. Or you could be over Iran as a special operations soldier. By the way, there are American boots on the ground right now. No,
there are.
Question. We have special operations teams there that are preparing this combat search and rescue mission. We probably have pre-positioned helicopters and aircraft, vertical takeoff aircraft there. We have CIA paramilitaries are definitely there, CIA clandestine officers who are supporting some of these airstrikes along with the Israelis. But we have an entire structure in place. Special Operations Command was born in the desert of Iran in 1979. And they have been itching to get feet back on the ground there, and they are on the ground. I am dead certain, without any question, SEALs are already carrying out operations along the Iranian coast against anti-ship missile batteries and where these small craft storage facilities are and the naval bases that are there. We are not hearing about them yet because social media and the videos haven't caught up to this, and they will. As ships sink, as we start blasting things, as videos start coming in from Iranians, like we're seeing, we're going to be seeing a lot more of the kinetic war. But Iran is huge. It is exceptionally large country. This will take a very, very long time. The Iranians' asymmetric capability, more than anything, is very simple. They have a very low bar. Kill an American. Capture American service members. Capture people that they believe are cooperating with the CIA, like they did with the Israelis, and string them up in public. The Iranian regime is not going to fall unless there is a color revolution where 50% of that 93 million people rise up in people power and overthrow the regime. And then it turns into a blood revolution where they get the guns from the cops and they start shooting their way through the regime. This mission is just going to be about Donald Trump risking American service members' lives for whatever it is in his head. He thinks he's the great Caesar here, carrying out a major campaign in Germania. But I think he's just Nero fiddling as the country burns.
Yep, we've seen this movie before.
Yeah, and it's Gladiator.
there'll be a lot to talk about. This is a terrible day for the state of Israel.
Mm.
Any person who cares about Israel's sovereignty and security in the Middle East, the destruction of the affection between Israel and the United States that has happened under Netanyahu is just a tragic thing, and there's enormous political implications attached to that. That are a lot of conversations we'll be talking about in the near future. But we'll watch this unfold. Pay attention, everybody, to the lies. Nobody's speaking to you on behalf of the government of the United States. I say this sadly, but with precision and accuracy. None of them can be trusted. Do not trust a word. Do not believe a sentence. All of these people are liars. They are as unfit as a group as any American leadership has ever been that has taken this country to war. They lack moral authority. They have not debated this. They have no plan. They have no vision for how it ends. And so we are in dangerous hours. One thing that I've always said about fascism is that inevitably fascists start wars while promising peace. And so nobody should be surprised that Donald Trump didn't mean it. His coalition has every potential to fracture over this because some of those voters, though I think their view of this was foolish, they in fact did believe that he meant it when he was awarded the FIFA Peace Prize that a lot of us laughed at. But here we are, and here we go. Dangerous days ahead. Steve Schmidt with the warning. Malcolm Nance, Black Man Spy. Ken Harbaugh, the Ken Harbaugh Show, president of the Valor Media Network. And catch us, if you can, at the Save America Movement channel as well. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for getting on this morning. Keep paying attention. The fun, as they say, is just beginning.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks.
Good.